Alright, so again, the purpose of this video for you guys, just to refresh your memory from yesterday, is we're going to do a few examples on what we did on Tuesday, and then you guys will have the rest of the time to work. So I plan on doing probably 3 or 4 examples with you guys, and then doing one last word problem with you guys. But before we do that, let's just quick refresh our memory as far as how do we solve our inequalities. Again, these are the exact same steps that we did for equations. The only thing that's new for inequalities is the highlighted part. So we're still going to do our keep, change. We're going to distribute or clear our fractions. We're going to move all the variables to one side. And we'll practice, I think all of the examples we're going to do today, we'll be practicing step 3. Combining like terms if needed. Adding or subtracting, and then multiplying or dividing. And don't forget that when you're multiplying or dividing, that you need to flip the switch or flip the inequality sign when you're multiplying or dividing by a negative. And again, we do this when we're solving. Sometimes you have to flip everything on its end in order to make graphing a little bit easier with that. Okay? The last step is, again, check your answer. You can check all your answers here if you want to. In all honesty, most students don't with inequalities, partially because they've gotten really good at solving equations by this point. So they're doing okay with that part. So let's take a look at some examples. Yesterday we took a look at A and B. If you were gone yesterday, I'll post the completed notes so you can see these on Schoology as well. Same thing with C and D. We worked through these two. Now we're going to take a look at E and F. So let's start with example E first, because this is a good one for us to start with. Whenever we're solving, I'm going to put a line through my inequality. Let's go through our steps. First thing, I see subtraction over here, so I'm going to do keep, change. Our second step, I see parentheses, so we're going to distribute. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x plus negative 2 times a positive 4 is a negative 8. Rewrite everything else. Then from here, if you recognize, there is a letter on both sides of your inequality sign. So we're going to move them to the same side. I always move them to the left side, also to make basically the main reason is to make our graphing a lot easier. So to move this 6x to the other side, we have to do the opposite by either adding or subtracting. This is a positive 6x, so that's why we're subtracting it. And you guys did great with this yesterday. Cross those out. Negative 2x minus 6x is a negative 8x plus negative 8 greater than or equal to a negative 4. Here's the letter we're trying to solve for. So that stays there to the very end. Moving the negative 8 over by adding it. So we have negative 8x is greater than or equal to 4. To get x by itself, we're dividing by negative 8. So bells and whistles should be going off because you're going to flip that inequality sign because you divided by a negative. So you end up with x is less than or equal to, if you do it as a fraction, negative 1/2. Or if you leave it as a decimal and put negative 0.5, that's totally fine with me. Here's our solution. As far as for graphing, and again, don't forget to graph on your homework, our letter comes first, so we like that a lot. So I'm going to put negative 1/2 in the middle. A number bigger is 0. A number smaller, negative 1. You guys did awesome with this yesterday, but we're going to do a closed circle, and then we're going to shade to the left because our arrow is pointing towards the left. So your graph will look like this. If you guys have questions, help each other out with those. But from what I saw yesterday, in all honesty, you guys are doing a really nice job with them. There's one type of example with our inequalities that you haven't seen yet, and you're going to see this in our next example. So let's go through and solve this one. I see subtraction, so keep, change, change. There's parentheses, so we're going to distribute. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 3 times a negative 2x is a negative 6x, is greater than 3 plus negative 6x. Now, this step, some of you guys might start to notice something. If not, you'll see it here in 1 second. We have a letter on both sides of our inequality, so I'm going to move them to the same side. This time by adding 6x, because it was a negative on this right-hand side. So those cross out. Then from here, negative 6 plus 6 is 0. So if it's a 0, we're just going to cross it out. And let's write what's left over. We're left with 3 is greater than 3. Now at this point, hopefully you guys are thinking, there's no letters left. So hopefully you're thinking back to one of our previous units that when the letters went away, we thought about whether it was a true or false statement. So let's look at this one. Is 3 bigger than 3? Hopefully you're saying, nope, that's false. So if we get a false, because our letters dropped out, that means our answer is no solution. That means there's no number that I can put in for x that will ever make this inequality be true. Every number that we were to try would be false every single time. So this one we can't graph because it's a no solution. If you want to do the shortcut, remember it's a 0 with a slash through it. It means no solution. I don't have the answer key to the homework assignment in front of me right now. So I can't remember if there's one like this one in the homework, but just kind of be watching out for that in case the letters cross out on both sides. If you guys have questions, see if you can help each other out with that one. All right, let's take a look at H. I want to show you guys one more like these, and then like I said, we'll do the very last word problem, and then you guys can have some work time. So on example H, keep, change, change. This one has parentheses on both sides, so let's make sure we distribute on both sides. So I have negative 10 plus negative 12x is less than 6 times 8 is 48 plus 6 times negative 2 is a negative 12n. Oh, I have 2 different letters. Let's make these both be x's. I didn't even catch that. So we're going to make sure they're the same letter. Change those to x's for me. Then from here, we have a letter on both sides. Let's move them to the same side. So I'm going to add 12x to both sides. These are the ones that we're trying to get rid of. So I'm just going to cross those out because those are automatically gone because we're moving it to the other side. Negative 12x plus 12x, oh, that also equals 0. So I'm going to cross those out as well. Now let's write what's left over. We have negative 10 is less than 48. No letters left at all. So again, we want to think true or false. Is negative 10 really smaller than 48? Hopefully you're thinking, yeah, that's true. And remember in a previous unit, if we got a true statement and all the variables were gone, this was an example of all real numbers, which again you could use with that fun R that kind of has 2 backs to it. And again, this one we can't graph because it really wouldn't be meaningful. This one you technically could graph, but it just wouldn't be meaningful to us at all. So if it's in all real numbers, we don't graph this one at all. And again, this situation only happens if the letters drop out. Every other example that we looked at, besides F and H, we've always had a letter that continued through in our solving, so that's why we actually came up with an answer. In F and H, our letters dropped out, so we didn't have any left at all for us to continue solving. So then we just had to determine true or false. Again, I don't think there's a ton like these on the homework, but I wanted to put it on your radar that could happen in real life if you're ever incorporating or encountering inequalities. If you guys have questions, again, help each other out with that one. Otherwise, let's take a look at the very, very last word problem. So for this one, I want you guys to be able to write an inequality and be able to use it to find other information. So on this one, it says that Haley has $50 to spend. She plans to buy some shirts that are $5 each and some pants that are $10 each. Write an inequality for this situation. And we're going to define our variables over here so we know what X and Y stand for, just like what we did in that last example yesterday. So whenever we're coding a word problem, we want to read it and figure out what it means mathematically. So Haley has $50 to spend. So let's think about this one. This one falls in our inequality unit. So we're going to use an inequality for this. If she has $50 to spend, can she go over $50? Or can she go on? Does she have to stay under it? Hopefully you guys are all saying she has to stay under $50. And she could be exactly $50. So we're going to put the equal to there. Because she could spend every last penny of that and be okay. But as soon as she went over 50, like $50 and a penny, she wouldn't have enough money. So on the other side here, it says she plans to buy some shirts. That doesn't really tell us anything mathematically. That are $5 each. Ooh, here's a number. And we know each. Each, hopefully you're recognizing, means multiply. So I'm going to have 5. And we don't know how many shirts she's going to buy. So I'm going to say that's my X. So X will represent her shirts. And she's going to buy some pants. So we have to add her cost for her pants. And her pants are $10 each. So number, each means multiplication. And pants should have a different variable because that's going to have a different cost. If you guys have ever paid attention to like how much you're spending when you're buying clothes, usually pants cost more than shirts. So they need to have a different variable. So my Y is going to represent her pants that she's buying. Now notice the directions on this one. It just says write an inequality. We're not going to do any solving for this one. All we're doing is writing the inequality. And we're going to use that inequality to answer this question here. Can she buy 3 shirts and 2 pairs of pants? Well, what that is saying is 3 shirts. That really just means, hey, what happens when X is 3 in that inequality? And what happens when my Y is 2? And again, that's why it's helpful to define your variables here. So we know anytime they're talking about shirts, that's my X. Anytime we talk about my pants, it's my Y. So here, 3 shirts really means X is 3. 2 pairs of pants really means that Y is 2. So now I'm going to write that inequality that we wrote up here exactly as it is, but when I run into my letters, I'm going to put in what my letters represent. So let's start writing it. 5 times my X is 3 plus 10 times my Y is 2 less than or equal to 50. Let's go ahead and figure out what this is equal to. 5, and you can type this all into your calculator at one time right here. I'm going to break it apart a little bit more. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 10 times 2, which is 20. So if I were to buy those things, that would be $35. Which is $35 less than or equal to 50? That is true. So because we found something that made that inequality be true, she could go to, I don't know, Kohl's, wherever, and she could buy 3 pairs of shirts and 2 pairs of pants if they were priced at those prices above. If you guys have any questions on this, see if you guys can help each other out. Basically, again, what it's doing is you're writing an inequality, and you're going to plug in information to see if that produces a true or false inequality, is what you're doing. If you guys have questions, I can help you guys tomorrow. Otherwise, send me Schoology messages or a Remind 101 message later today if you guys have any questions, and I'll see if I can help you guys out that way too. Otherwise, you guys have the rest of the time to work on your first priority should be to finish up the one-step inequalities worksheet, which again, you need to have submitted by 2 o'clock today. Otherwise, you'll have a contract for that one. And just so you know, that contract, even though it will go up tomorrow, I'm going to make it stay up the rest of the week for it. Once you have that done, then I want you guys to work on the multi-step inequalities worksheet, which is due at the start of class tomorrow. Okay? Again, send me messages if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, you guys should be quietly working the rest of the hour.